Hello everyone, this is Harry's Movie. In this issue, let's look at a story of a gangster, Gangster number 1. In 1968, the big street guy, Gangster, was spotted by the gang boss. The black boss, Freddy, called the butcher a quite legendary figure. However, he was a complete gentleman. Freddy was different from ordinary hooligans, he was well-dressed, personable, decent, and had a special style. Gangster admired Freddy very much. In his eyes, Freddy was a perfect boss. Gangster was obsessed and envious of everything about Freddy. Now, seeing real people was even more ecstatic. When they first met, Freddy gave Gangster £500. Such a generous shot made Gangster both surprised and happy. Since then, Gangsters became Freddy's subordinate. When hitting people, collecting debts, even killing people, Gangster didn't even blink. As long as the boss ordered, he would do anything for him without hesitation. Tonight, when the gang members were partying, the nightclub suddenly caught fire. The server recalled that before the fire she saw a sneaky, suspicious man. A fire broke out as soon as the man left. At this time, Gangster found someone staring at them. When he walked in to check, the other party drove away in a hurry. Under the shining of the fire, everyone could see that the one seated in the car was a guy from the rival gang. Then, that guy was smashed to pieces by Gangster's group. Freddy was furious. He immediately had a cordial greeting to the boss of the hostile gang. Freddy considered it. From all of his subordinates, he picked out the clever and loyal Gangster to escort him. However, Freddy did not intend to use force to solve the problem. He found Taylor of the rival gang and wanted an explanation. But Taylor naturally refused to admit it. He also argued that the subordinate in the hospital had left the gang long ago. Besides, the nightclub caught fire for no reason. There may also be accidents caused by cigarette butts thrown into the trash can. Freddy had no evidence, so he had to put it down temporarily. He should rebuild the nightclub first, and then slowly find the reasons later. When they went home at night, Gangster looked carefully at Freddy. Freddy wore a high-end suit and always wore a white shirt, ruby chain buckle, full gold watch, Italian handmade leather shoes. Gangster liked everything. These luxury goods matched the temperament of the boss. Seeing this, Gangster was envious. Freddy, who was driving, caught Gangster's drunken eyes. He glanced at his chest, took off his tie pin, and gave it to Gangster. Gangster carefully accepted it and was overwhelmed by favor from Superior. Then, Freddy took Gangster to a nightclub for a drink. This was also Freddy's sight. To please Freddy, the manager specially selected a new beautiful dancer to present. Karen made a living as a performer, not a prostitute. She didn't have the slightest impression of that kind of low-quality gangster. But, Freddy was a different gentleman gangster. Karen was instantly fascinated by Freddy's temperament. Freddy was also attracted by Karen's beauty. He sent a dancer to dance with Gangster, and he talked and laughed with Karen. Gangster glared at the woman who had been snatched by his boss, feeling particularly unhappy in his heart. One day Gangster and Roland saw Eddie whispering to Taylor of the hostile gang in the gang on the road. Gangster thought that Eddie must have betrayed his boss. He and Roland followed Eddie home. He took out an axe from his waist and put it on the table. Eddie heard that Gangster was cruel, so scared that he almost fainted. Under the fright of Gangster, Eddie was forced to confide in the truth. It turned out that Taylor had long wanted to kill Freddy. He bought off Eddie to get the detailed whereabouts of Freddy. When Roland learned of this, he immediately wanted to report to Freddy. But Gangster didn't think so, because he was the only one who could do things like saving his boss. Poor Roland was confused and his head was chopped off by Gangster. This day, Gangster came to Freddy to ask for credit. But Karen stopped him at the door. Karen said Freddy was upset by Dahay's death. If Gangster wanted to say anything, he had to wait until Freddy finished discussing things with Tommy. Tommy was the boss of the gang. He didn't fight or shoot, he was very loyal to Freddy. So Freddy always consulted Tommy to discuss countermeasures. When Gangster chatted with Karen in the living room, he suddenly knew that Freddy was going to marry Karen. Everyone knew about this, but he didn't tell Gangster. Maybe Freddy also noticed the madness of Gangster. The thought of admiring was taken away. Gangster's heart was mixed. He loved Freddy. He loved his position, loved his money, loved everything about him. Freddy had always been what Gangster longed to become. People always wanted what they lacked. The kind of love mixed with fantasy and worship made Gangster fascinated. He felt that after Freddy was delayed by this woman, he didn't deserve to be his boss anymore. So, he wanted to replace Freddy and became the boss himself. On Friday, Gangster sat in the car and waited all day. He knew that tonight was Freddy's burial day. Late at night, Freddy and Karen just returned home romantically. He was attacked by Taylor. Karen yelled heartily. Freddy also begged Taylor not to kill Karen. He would accept all the grudges. The cruel Taylor of course didn't do what Freddy wanted. Taylor instructed his subordinate to wipe Karen's neck. Then he personally shot Freddy. Gangster saw all of this. Freddy was dead, and the boss in Gangster's heart was gone. So he would kill Taylor to avenge the boss. So, as soon as Taylor came in, Gangster was ready to kill him. He chased to the apartment where Taylor lived. At this moment, Gangster felt he was handsome. He opened the door with one foot and directly shot Taylor down. Then he slowly took out the big and small tools from the bag and put them on the table. He took off his suit and shirt, grabbed his axe, and slashed it up. Tommy quickly approached Gangster and informed him about Freddy's being attacked. Fortunately, the bullet didn't hurt him, and Freddy managed to save his life. But now Taylor was dead, and the subordinates of Taylor Back also sued Freddy. The grievances between the two gangs were well known. After he recovered, Freddy was sentenced to 30 years in prison. After Freddy went to jail, Tommy was supposed to be the boss. He was usually weaker in his work. Everyone refused to accept him, and they all thought about their superiority. And the werewolf, Gangster, always made people fearful. After a long silence, he suddenly interrupted Tommy and took the opportunity to sit in the seat of the boss. The scene was suddenly silent, and everyone did not dare to say anything. It was a tacit understanding that the new boss was Gangster. In 1970, Gangster washed Taylor's gang by blood. In 1972, Gangster began to expand vigorously. He broke the old gentleman style, burned, killed, looted, and committed any misdeed. In 1973, Gangster opened a casino and made £2 million in the first year. By 1981, it had 300 people working for Gangster. From 1982 to 1986, Gangster entered the drug market. In 1993, Gangster got rid of the last Freddy subordinate. In 2000, Freddy was released from prison. Eddie, who betrayed Freddy, told Gangster, "Freddy got a Bachelor of Arts degree in prison, getting married just after getting out of prison." The subject was Karen, who was wiped off her neck and was lucky enough to live. And Freddy invited a lot of big guys. Only Gangster didn't know these things. So, Gangster took the initiative to meet Freddy. Freddy walked into the magnificent hall. He saw this place was the same as before, nothing changed at all. Gangster retained all the decoration and furniture. And he learned from Freddy to keep his house clean and orderly. Gangster grabbed 2 banknotes and said they were wedding gifts for Freddy. Freddy felt very upset and stared at Gangster without saying a word. Gangster asked Freddy what he wanted. This apartment, these shoes, or these tie pins. Freddy looked at what Gangster had thrown away, and asked Gangster whether he was crazy or not. He didn't want an apartment or shoes, not to mention this broken tie pin that had been worn by Gangster for 30 years. But Gangster said that it was Freddy who made him like this. For 30 years, Gangster thought he had done better than Freddy. And he also avenged Freddy. Although he didn't want to kill anyone, he had to do that. With that, Gangster grabbed the gun and handed it to Freddy, asking Freddy to kill him. To force Freddy to do it, Gangster described the conversation on the day Freddy was assassinated, and explained the scene when Karen's throat was cut and stimulated Freddy with all kinds of vicious words. After that, Gangster turned his back to Freddy and wet his eyes against the sky outside the window. But Freddy had already seen through the vanity of the world. He was no longer irritable, no longer killed people, and he no longer cared about those false names. Freddy said the boss of the gang, who used to be all-powerful, was dead. Now he was just an old guy in torn clothes. Finally, Freddy put down the gun and left. Gangster thought he copied Freddy's road to success and even did better than Freddy. In the end, Freddy dismissed it, which made his 30 years of work go to waste. When he was young, Gangster wanted to be like Freddy, but he fought for a lifetime, he still was not as good as Freddy. Becoming a gang boss was nonsense. He was still as far away from Freddy as when he was a teenager. This evening, Gangster took off his suit shirt and tie pin and burned all the banknotes owed to Freddy, then commit suicide. In the end, the tune ends and the audience disperses, and all the prosperity is gone. Okay, this is the end of this issue. Friends who like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you next time.